Okay, look like we're running here. I didn't know I was on. Anyway, this is Kaiser Standing Light Society. Now we have a question we're going to discuss because it was posed to me, and I've been thinking about it. So I said, well, let me get online and think with you all. So I will be taking questions or comments after my presentation for those who have questions. Okay, the question is, what's taking place in with the South African ambassador and the United States visits? What's all that has implications for us? In other words, what took place for those who haven't been keeping up with the news? What's been happening is that the black South Africans have been accused of white genocide, and ludicrous as it sounds, this is changing the history of what really happened. Now, the way that has implications for us is that we have a blueprint of how things are done. In other words, the error on South Africa's part was not keeping their history in the forefront. Never let it be forgotten what their struggle was about. The minute you stop teaching your past history, you open the door for someone to come in with a different narrative. Now, very few people are alive today when, well, let's say in South Africa, because most of the population is young, most of those people were not there when the apartheid took place. So they don't know anything about it. So to ask them to keep teaching the past is something they don't know about, they're not really attached to like that. So it has to be something set up on an institutional level where no matter what the population is, they be taught their past. So this is what we can learn from that. The so-called black people in America, I say so-called because you don't know who you are. Keeping this real history is paramount to our success. The minute, just the idea that you allow yourself to be called black is based on the fact that you have not kept who you really are in the spotlight. It has not been taught. So you see what happened for generations of youth and people come and go, not knowing who they really are. Because who they really are in the beginning, it was who you really are in the beginning, it was criminal. For you to wear your fez, to speak your Arabic language, to do anything that shows you not to be a United States citizen. That was criminal. So after generations of that forced oppression, you really lose sight of who you really are. That this language is not the language of your ancestors. That this religion is not the religion of your ancestors. So you become totally lost. So we learn from South Africa is that to keep the citizenry from being total lost, somebody said public announcement. Ain't nothing more public than what I'm saying. This is the greatest announcement there to be. So not be distracted from the point being made is that we have to keep our history, the true history, which is not about slavery. We have to find it, those who don't know it, and teach it, not just on a family level, but on an institutional level, so that those who are coming up are taught this history. What difference does it make if you don't know who the U.S. president is when you have no history of the First Continental Congress when all of the presidents were melanated? It's an insult to your ancestry not to know who they are and what they did. So that's a lesson we've learned, is to always keep your narrative in foresight, the true history. Otherwise, you will be hijacked. But no one can hijack you when you constantly letting it be known the real history. So that's a lesson we learned. And so in the past, we have our struggle here has inspired Africans to be independent. Now we need to take inspiration from Africa for true liberation. True liberation. No matter how many of our leaders, our movements you tried to kill, you can never kill the idea. Well, that's about it. Let's see if there's any questions in the chat. Hey, what's going on? Any question on what we discussed? Oh, for those who had a question about this image, this is an image of Noble Drew Ali uh, carrying a black woman out of the, let's say, the maritime system, which is represented by water. In other words, she's been engulfed with this false narrative about everything, so she's become a casualty of war. Not that she's physically dead, but she's spiritually dead. So what Noble Drew Ali is shown by this photo, which it says uplifting fallen humanity, the first place we have to go to is our female. They're the spark to humanity. They reproduce life. With them not being on the righteous path, we're totally lost. And that goes back to the idea I spoke of earlier. If you don't keep teaching who you are in the forefront and not being accused of racism because you're teaching race first, if you let that happen, then you create a generation who do not know who they are. And then anybody can come and give you any narrative they want to give you. So let's talk about this photo until I get some questions in. He has on the red fez, which symbolize the sun. You see? That's the sun. The green is symbolizing the earth, which the woman is. She is the womb of the earth. She reproduces for the earth. And those are all our revolutionary colors. Red and green, that's the color of our flag. With 5-pointed star. Red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center. So that's all about liberation. Okay, so that's what we had to say, and we're going to cut it off right here. Thank you. Thank you for your subscriptions, those who've been coming along and asking questions and liking. That goes a long ways. But I have to ask you to like. Why should I have to ask you to like? I mean, that should be self-evident. You should, if you receive any value from what's being shared, you would ask yourself, how can I assist him? How can I show the value that I receive? And one way is to like the video. That's why it's there, not because they care about what you like. It's your way of allowing the algorithm to show this is a video that need to be circulated, that the people want to see this. In other words, it's like supply and demand. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you.